Hey, what's up? I'm Nick G. I'm the dude on the couch. So, what I want to talk about right now is kind of a conversational messaging, marketing. What are we talking about? When I'm listening to people talk about Obama, they always say, hey, just admit it. That guy kind of made things racial, huh? And I'm like, no. He was a dude that came on the scene. He addressed his biology and people made it about race. You know what I'm saying? They wanted to talk about him going to school at a madrasa. In the meantime, we're having Supreme Court conversations right now about whether or not the government can, sponsor Christian schools. Here, teach about God, this imaginary thing that you believe in that guides your life that nobody can get their story straight. Yes, let's make schools on that. But I think my bigger thing is we lose we lose the conversation. We're a nation of laws. We aren't a nation of individuals who wear this shirt, who do this thing, who dance this dance, or have two left feet, or whatever. That's not what we are. We're a nation of laws that are begins with the U.S. Constitution. I'm going to read some stuff because I've been kind of working on it, and I can only fit so much up in here and still have it sound like language. We have to start using the law as an offensive weapon. We need to stop treating the Constitution like a holy document and start using it like a switchblade. The GOP has relied on the fact that Democrats are scared of appearing too aggressive when invoking legal authority. Now, let's talk about this a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Everybody is so quick to offend somebody. But what's winning those elections right now? Offending somebody, calling somebody a dick gets the attention. But does that have anything to do with the law? No. Why'd you call somebody a dick? This man doesn't respect people's rights. Fuck you. You want men in a women's bathroom? We have not addressed the Constitution in any of that. You know what I'm saying? It's just words. So we're having a food fight. Let me keep going. Constitutional literalism is no longer their brand, it's an indictment. So listen to what that's being said. You know what I'm saying? They're saying that, well, we are going with the original document. Yeah? You're going with the original document where a lot of European people wrote a lot of fluffy language to embellish their contribution to the world around them. In reality, there were minorities, there were marginalized people who were being abused, punished, and hurt, so those people could write those books, so those people could write their documents and walk over with their other men's groups. Of course, they were men's groups, and saying, yes, we did these things. In which case, they did none of it. They took credit for it. Every Republican position right now is measured against the letter, structure, and jurisprudence of the Constitution. And it's exposed as fraudulent. If you can, and this is something that I noticed they do, they give you a brief history lesson. In the history lesson, there's not history, it's bullshit, but it's presented as fact. So with the predicate of fact, quote unquote, given to you, in reality, they're setting a precedent, a premise that you believe from this starting point, this is actual. In fact, if you don't know any better, you know what I'm saying? They don't quote amendments. They imply amendments. I talk about this in terms of manhood. Talk about this in terms of MAGA. It's implied. Be a man. What's a man? What's a man? I got to stand up when I pee if I'm outside. You know what I'm saying? Does that make me a man? No. I can sit down and pee. I don't, I need puddles. I've done it. I was in the Marine Corps. They had us one time find a perimeter. Everybody found the puddle because we all had to pee, and everybody peed in the puddle, and it was awkward because we're all sitting there looking at each other, knowing that we're in a warm, wet puddle in the rain. Back to this. People are wasting time trying to argue that people have the right to vote. Nobody's questioning the right to vote. Are you an American citizen? Yes. Can you check the ballot? Yes. What they are doing is they're making it so that you cannot vote. They're making it so that I have an E on the last letter of my last name. So, can't have a vowel, man. You got to go get this permit. That kind of weird shit. For voting rights, the elections clause Article 1, Section 4 gives Congress explicit power to override state voting schemes for federal elections. Do you understand that? So places like Tennessee, places like South Carolina, places where I'm in New York. In New York, any local scrub has a "fuck Kathy Hochul" statement, bumper sticker, whatever. But we have the right to do that. We're in New York. You know what I'm saying? We aren't in other states where they teach the Bible in school. We aren't in other states where you get beat for being a certain way and people just don't talk about it. We're in New York. I'm in the Albany region. There's like 10 schools you could go to right now and get a specialized education. I mean, there's no reason. Even my dumbest people in my area are smarter than most people in other states. I don't play. It's a fact. We're in a school area. The GOP attempts to restrict access, and they're all illegal seizures of power. None of it's legal. From every voter ID law and purge effort, it should be framed as insurrection against the Constitution's elections authority. Every aspect should be insurrection. These people are stealing our rights. But if you balance the actual, this is my constitutional document, my hands up. If you balance the actual document up against the actions that people are doing, there's no chewing on words. There's no this guy. There's no American people. There's no in my place that I live, in my community, in my church. There's none of that. There's the American document that creates the laws, and there's what's really happening. That is a simple message. There's no, what else you got to say? If you are in the government and you are looking forward to governing, there's only the law. There's only the law. When we're talking about reproductive autonomy, the 14th Amendment is about liberty. It doesn't talk about race. It doesn't talk about race. It's not an opinion. It's Casey, Griswold, that's Skinner. No, I'm not pulling that out of my head. I'm reading it. Most of that doesn't mean shit to me unless I had it right here. But for the sake of explaining it, and I'm putting it in context, it has been taken to court. It has been defined that all of the televised stuff that we see coming out on our media feeds, our news feeds, it goes on the corporate media, goes on to the independent media, gets repeated, gets liked, gets shared. None of it's true. It's just dudes talking. You know what I mean? It is literally like me choosing to hear from the Donnas about partying, raucous, and random fucking that I don't want to hear from dude bands. I cannot explain it. I am put off by aggressive dude bands, but when I hear the Donnas, I'm like, whoa, bro. It's just me. By the way, go pick up the Donnas because they are just awesome. Stream them, raucous. Whoa, that's me. So when we're talking about gun regulation, because I want to bring it back into the conversation, a well-regulated militia, it's not poetic. You know what I'm saying? It's conditional. You don't get the second half of the Second Amendment unless you satisfy the first. Yes, have your guns, but you need to be part of a militia, a well-regulated militia. You know what I mean? They leave that part out because it comes down to Scalia. It was Scalia that started the changing that made it so it was an individual's right to have guns, and that was very Heritage Foundation. That was very Federalist Society. It had nothing to do with the actual writing. This goes back to the originalism. They want to use the original literal word, but without meaning the original literal meaning. And so in doing that, there's that conflation. So every swinging dick, like me, other motherfuckers on the couch, I happen to have one right here, all these people are repeating themselves because they're confident in who they hear things from. Fuck, I'm confident in who I hear things from. I know one time, and this was at the beginning of the Signal Gate thing, I'm listening to Black Man Spy, and I'm listening to my homeboy talk about all of the things that are likely being done, all the likely things that are already being spied on, all the likely avenues that are currently being tapped into. And I bought into that whole hog as if he knew something. I'm not saying he didn't know something. I'm saying in the conversation that he was having, I ran with whatever this man said, but it doesn't mean it was true. It was hypothesized from a man who had experience. Do you get it? So I ran with that. And so a little bit, I started talking a little bit out of pocket to people about things that I could not secondarily prove. I heard this dude say it, so I'm saying it too. Militias are state-sanctioned forces. You're not a militia. Me and my homeboy next door, we're not a militia. Me and the 10 dudes on this street who are willing to fight, we're not a militia. Think about this. This comes from before the United States. Hey, was the United fucking States. This comes from a time when each state was its own kind of country, unified. And that's what was America at that time. So a well-regulated militia, evolve, is what our National Guard is right now. Our American National Guard for each state is the well-regulated militia that was intended from the U.S. Constitution. That's the Second Amendment. This is two fingers. 1, 2. That's for the Second Amendment. That's the Second Amendment. Well-regulated militia. You and your homeboys cosplaying with camouflage and bang bang is not a well-regulated militia. January 6th was overrun. The Capitol was overrun by people who cosplayed their well-regulated militia. Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Same thing. We got different groups. They're wearing their uniforms. They're wearing their colors. They're wearing their hats. They're wearing their masks so you can't see who the little pussy people are. If you believe in hate, look angry. If you believe in hate, look mean. If you believe in hate, show people. If you believe in love, show people that. People talk to me all the time, and I'm like, my guy. And they say, dude, who the fuck are you? I say, I don't care. We're wearing the same shirt. We're twins. We're related. Everything is everything. People accuse me, quick sidebar. People accuse me of being narcissistic. I'm not saying that I don't look out for self-preservation. I'm saying that I see myself in everything. Everybody should see themselves in everything. That's how I have empathy for a dog. That's how I have empathy for when I see a child, you know what I'm saying, who watched the last grown-up take the last snack that they likely deserve. You know what I'm saying? To me, that's the difference. There's an internal something that doesn't come from a source of faith, that comes from an internal search. But none of that has to do with the Constitution. The Constitution allows me to have the freedom to feel the way that I feel. Back to the Constitution. Religious extremism. The Establishment Clause in the Constitution, it does not permit the imposition of religious belief through law. Separation of church and state. If your religious freedom requires state enforcement, it's not a religion. Now, I'm telling you straight up, I talk to people all the time. I read the Bible. I've read the Bible. I remember the first book that I was ever purchased by my dad and given to me as a gift was the Bible. And I sat and I read it cover to cover. Why, my dad just gave it to me. And most of it didn't make sense. Begot. And I was like, zoink. But I read it cover to cover, and that stuff has come with me to the point where I'm familiar enough with it now that when I read it and I'm deep. I'm a big Job guy. I'm a big prodigal son guy. That's kind of my jam, and I'm not going to sleep on Jesus. Jesus is the inspirational superhero that this time calls for right now. I'm not saying that we should make, like the donkey and the elephant, like for the political parties. I'm just saying right now, if the Democratic Party has one thing in their fucking mind, they should be trying to run as Jesus, but support the Constitution. And it's not because Jesus was Christian, but it was because Jesus was a rabble rouser. He knew the word. He spoke the word. He encouraged thought. None of it had to be with do this because it's the this. Dig it? Presidential abuse from the Constitution. The president is not a sovereign. The Republic administrator, dude, we, the American people, are the boss of the President of the United States. Any deviation from lawful court orders, spending authority, or congressional oversight is constitutional mutiny. I'm saying this again, yo. Constitutional mutiny. We have an administration in the White House who has influence over the other two branches of government. And they are causing constitutional mutiny because they are taking away from the laws and creating no law. Dig it? That's what we need to be afraid of. Now, should we be, this guy fucked children? Should we be, this guy is getting people killed? This guy is robbing people? This guy is laundering money? No. We should say, this is the law. This is what he's doing. This is illegal. That's all we should be doing. We don't talk about him. We talk about the law, the action, the response. Full stop. Now, if I was going to talk about strategic rhetoric, how do you talk about this in public? Never say, we believe the Constitution requires. You don't want to say, Republicans are wrong. They're violating the document they claim to defend. Never say, our values, our obligation under the Constitution. What you need to say is, we're a nation of laws. We are the United States. These are the laws at hand. The Fifth Amendment is due process. The 14th Amendment allows you the individuality of identity, the existence, the dignity. The Second Amendment allows you to defend yourself. The First Amendment allows you to speak out. The Second Amendment is to defend yourself against oppressors. Defend your home. The reason that we are having this problem is we've gotten into such a way that we watch TV. We choose our heroes by TV, by music. I can't think about how many people I had posters on their walls, I had their cassettes in my ears, that I think about it now, and those are not the people that I would have followed had I had a choice. Had I been given, you think about it. You're given the people around you as an example. Do you want to be like them? Do you want to exist where they are? Do you want to pick up their quirks? Or do you want to learn to be yourself as an individual? Do your inner search. Help people. That's the American way. Existence. Now, when I'm talking about how it gets marketed, how the messaging goes as far as being a part of the democratic, and I say democratic process because we have two parties. Why do we have two parties? Because the media, and I say the media, the corporate media, every time election season, go, oh, come on in, guys. This is what the traditional thing is. Oh, this guy's breaking the norms by doing this thing traditionally, yebada, yebada, yebada. So in doing the yebada, they're reinforcing this is the steps that a candidate needs to take, to a point where we're doing the process of the steps and we're losing the biggest step, which is the elected officials are voices of the people. That's what our elected officials should be. There is no document that says we need the rich guys. We need the business owners. That comes back to the Federalist Papers where a bunch of rich dudes, 2025, it would have been a bunch of rich dudes in a Signal chat, but a bunch of rich dudes decided they were the ones that had to do this because the impoverished, who they were exploiting for their exceptional creativity and effort, the rich guys were getting credit for it. You know what I mean? They thought only they could do that. That's where we are now. That's where we're being moved back, where the literal written word is no longer the written word that means a thing. Now it's the written word that means we need to find this, find the shadows, find the dents, find the kinks, and we need to place our boats there, and we need to work from there. That's literally what the Republican Party is right now. They have teams, and teams teams of lawyers who have no job for defending individuals, no job for defending the law, but to look at the law, to look at case law, to look at the Constitution, the amendments, and all the things that come about, all the decisions by the Supreme Court, and find the way out, the way around, the technicality that trips the wire, that makes the illegality acceptable. We're in a crazy place. To me, the marketing is so easy. Only talk about the Constitution. You don't need rich white people with money to negotiate that. It's already been done by rich white people with money. I'm Nick G. I'm a dude on the couch. I'm out. If you're going to believe in someone, why not believe in me?